What's up, Sterile Processing Universe? It's Hank Balch here from Beyond Clean, and we're talking today about getting that promotion. It's one of the most exciting things that can happen in your sterile processing career. Definitely the first promotion that you get, but in general, I think it's always fun to get a promotion. So I'm going to talk just a little bit today about how to position yourself to get the promotion, and in particular, how to approach it if you're not qualified. One of my biggest beefs with the industry today is a lot of our job descriptions and qualifications for these positions, I think, are kind of trash. Just being honest, they were written decade ago, and just not tied into reality about what makes a high-performing lead tech or a high-performing supervisor or manager or director or quality assurance tech or educator. It just kind of written like someone took a cookie cutter and said boom, 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 boom. And no one's using common sense anymore about, hey, what if they don't have a college degree, but they're still awesome leaders? Right, so we're going to talk a little bit about that today. But let's start at the beginning. I think you need to start working now to position yourself in the best possible way to get the promotion, i.e., don't wait until the job is posted. Don't wait until your supervisor tells everyone, hey, guys, this is my 2-week notice. I'm going to the hospital across the street. We'll see you later. And then everyone's looking around thinking like, who's going to be the new supervisor? And then there's like this mad rush. You should start day one when you hit the department, and keep in mind every single day from that day forward is an interview. You're constantly interviewing with your boss, with your coworkers, because y'all, to be honest, there's a lot of our coworkers that are going to end up being our bosses one day, our supervisor, our manager and director. I remember I ended up directing a department that I started as a frontline technician. So everybody who was in that staff meeting the first day that I started ended up working for me, and actually working for the person who worked for me, the person who worked for them. So it was director, supervisor, director, manager, supervisor, technician. So all of that level of leadership was built up in that same department. I tell you that story to say, be nice to your coworkers. Right? That's number one. But number two, realize that you're showing them by your action today, regardless of your title, would you or could you make a good leader or make a good educator? So do not think at your interview or your resume starts the moment that job is posted. It needs to start way sooner than that. And many of you, I think, have struggled because you have a disconnect there, and you maybe act a certain way or say certain things that you wouldn't say if you were sitting in a job interview, but you're getting that you are always in that job interview 24/7 with everyone on your team, and especially in front of your department leaders and upline leaders into the OR and into the C-suite. Everyone is watching. People remember. So act now to prepare. Let's assume that you have prepared and that job gets posted, and you take a look at the job posting like we all do, and go straight to the qualifications and the requirements, and then you get disappointed because they're asking for something that you don't have. Maybe it's years experience. Maybe it's a particular level of education, a college degree, for instance. Maybe it's experience in leadership. They say, hey, if you want to be a supervisor, we need at least 3 years previous experience leading. There's all kinds of different things that you could fall short on. I want you to take away from this video that regardless of what that job description says, keep pushing forward. This experience may differ depending on where you are. There are some departments and facilities out there that are just stone cold, black and white. If you don't meet it, you're not even getting anywhere in the process. You can't even complete the application, right? That's how locked in they are to those qualifications. However, there's many departments out there that even though that job description and those qualifications are written very clearly in black and white, if you're proactive in having conversations directly with your upline leaders, with the hiring manager or the recruiter, go into their office and say, listen, I understand, I can read, I understand what the qualifications are. However, I think personally, I make a great case for an exception to these qualifications, and I'll tell you why. And then start building your case. In this, and this is again going to be applicable to some and maybe not to others, but keep in mind that many of the pay ranges or the job codes that are out there are tied in to the qualifications. So what I mean by that is if your sterile processing manager, for instance, makes 60,000 a year or 65,000 a year, that pay range is directly tied to that qualification of a college degree. So if you're coming in with that exception and saying, hey, I don't have the college degree, but I've got the skills, I've got the trust of the whole department, I've got all of these examples of why I could do a fantastic job leading. Don't be surprised if HR comes back to you and says, okay, I take that exception, or I receive that exception, we'll give you a shot at this job, or at least through the interview process, but you don't qualify for that pay range. We're going to have to bump you down a couple of notches because you don't have that degree. I'm not saying that's the way that it should be, but I'm just saying in reality, that's the way a lot of these HR compensation plans work, because they've got to have some standard to hold everybody to. And many times they're choosing those education standards. I still think it's a good idea, even if you have to take a pay cut compared to a candidate who meets all the qualifications. I would still get it because that job title and that experience gives you a lot of opportunity to build more leverage. And then if you do a fantastic job as a manager for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, then you can come back and say, listen, let's be real. I'm killing it in this job. I understand the job code. Let's talk about other ways to compensate. Maybe give me more days off. Can I have a bonus? Get creative, because y'all don't want to lose me now, right? So that's where that kind of leverage piece comes in. But I still think it's more valuable to say yes on the front end, even if you got to compromise on the total of that compensation level, because they're making an exception to the rules. And let me kind of stop here and do a little segue, or a little sideshow maybe. If you're in a position today as a department leader to edit these job requirements, please, do us all a favor, in the whole industry and any future leader that would come into your department. Do us a favor and edit that job description and those qualifications down. Edit them down, not because we want less qualified technicians to fill those roles or less qualified professionals. I'm not saying to dumb down the requirements. What I'm saying is break up these ridiculous, not tied to reality standards, and open it so that you get more candidates to choose from who are coming from diverse experiences and backgrounds and have their own case for why they can do a good job in this role, and at least give them a shot. If they're not having to be the exception, but they actually meet some minimum qualifications for these various roles. And that's going to change. The qualifications for a day shift lead should be different than a director of a multi-site sterile processing job in a health system, right? Those are different roles and they do require different levels of qualifications. But let's be reasonable and err on the side of flexibility as opposed to trying to cookie cutter the whole world into everybody has to have a college degree or you don't know anything, or everyone has to have all these certifications or you can't do the job. That's not reasonable. I prefer to tie it more toward data, more toward that tangible, experiential. I've led departments. I've done process improvement projects. Everybody here loves me and trusts me. That should count for something. So you're sitting in there having the conversation, and let's just say, I know we've spent a while here talking about the exception, but let's say that you meet all the qualifications. Well, you still got to go through that competitive interview process. If you're interviewing for an internal job, this next step is a little easier, but it's also true for external candidates. This is where you want to start your politicking. Not started, I guess. This is where you want to continue your politicking, because you should have been politicking from day one, building that network, building that trust. But especially now, you want everybody who knows you and respects you and is a fan of your work to be behind you in this process. Side conversations happen in the interview process. Your hiring manager, that decision maker, talks to other people who are not in that interview room. They ask their opinion. They vet these candidates in all kinds of different ways. So it is in your best interest to find out, who's involved, who are these other leaders, who can I go talk to on the side and just make my case. Go talk to the perioperative director and say, listen, I know you're not the decision maker in this new job for sterile processing manager, but I really want the job. I'm excited about this opportunity, and I just want to tell you why I think I would be a good fit. And leave it at that. You don't have to ask them to go try to influence the decision, but if you make a good enough case and they really believe in you, they're likely to go influence the decision themselves of their own accord, because they also want the best person possible for that role. And that's what I mean by politicking. I know politics kind of has a dirty connotation these days, but politicking in a good way, building all those advocates across the system as thoroughly as you can. As I mentioned, if you're applying from the outside, it's a little more difficult to figure out, who's there working. And I covered this in a previous video, but I highly advise you to start building your local network now. This is a great call out for these local sterile processing chapters to get involved so that you know other leaders and they know you before you come knocking on the door and applying for a job. If you don't have those opportunities, at the very least, start making some phone calls. Use LinkedIn to look folks up and then send them a message and say, you don't know me, but my resume is in your pile, and I would love to just have a quick conversation to introduce myself. The kind of folks that go after it like that, you're sending a very clear signal to that hiring manager that this person is serious about wanting this job. Not just any job, not just any promotion. They want this one because they are hounding me for these opportunities and interviews. There's a lot more that can be said about how to get that promotion. I'm going to stop here to just keep this video reasonably short. But if you have any more questions or other ideas around promotions that you want me to cover in future videos, please drop it in the comments section below, or you can email me at hank@beyondclean.net. Until next time, go get those promotions, get paid, start interviewing every single day, or realizing that you are interviewing every single day. And as always, keep fighting dirty.